I'm in Corsica working the wine harvest. In this video, I'm going to show you a simple experiment to look at the anatomy of a mature grape and to model what goes on inside a wine press. For the first part, all you need is a couple of grapes and a knife and ideally something to cut on. So I'll start out here in the vines. I picked this bunch of grapes this morning up in the hills over there. And now it's time to get some grapes. So one that's pretty much at maturity. I'm just going to cut into it. Cut in half. We can see already juice is almost starting to drip out. And we have the same distinctive package around the seeds. So a little bit of harder flesh there. The massive pulp, which will freely give juice. And then a layer of harder cells right by the skin. And as we squeeze it, we can see the pulp comes out first. We're left with all that pulp left behind. The epithelial cells on the inside of the skin remain behind, as do the ones coating the seed. Now let's go inside and see how this comes into play when we actually crush the grapes, modeling a wine press. To model what goes on inside a wine press, I'll be using grapes, a couple of glasses, and some water bottles as weights. For this to work, I need the glasses to fit snugly inside each other. To start off with, I'm going to fill one of the glasses full of grapes. Now that it's full, I'm going to add the other glass on top and gradually increase the amount of weight, simulating the increase of pressure inside of a wine press. To relate this to what goes on inside a wine press, recall that pressure is equal to a force per unit area, and that the unit 1 bar is approximately equal to the force exerted by 1 kilogram per centimeter squared. Here's a physics teacher diagram of a glass filled with grapes being crushed by another glass on top. And here's a couple of calculations to show that the area of the top glass is approximately 25 centimeters squared. And we'll use this area to calculate the pressure exerted by a couple of different masses of water bottles that I'll load onto my makeshift wine press. Here I'm loading on 2.5 kilograms, which will exert a pressure approximately 1 bar, which is about the starting pressure they use in a wine press when we first start getting a little bit of juice coming out. You can see they're lightly squeezed and there are a couple of drops of juice coming out, but other than looking a little bit damp, the grapes look more or less intact with fairly little damage. Now I'll load on 5 kilos to exert a pressure of about 0.2 bars. You'll notice that drips are flowing more freely from the grapes now as they become a little bit more deformed, but they still more or less retain their shape. Here the pulp is being crushed, but the epithelial and seed packet cells will remain largely intact. Some juice will start to pool on the bottom, but we still haven't yet extracted a lot. Notice that while the skin and some of the flesh is ruptured, the layer of cells coating the seeds remain largely intact. Here I'm adding 7.5 kilograms to simulate a pressure of about 3 bars, and this is where things will start to get interesting. You'll notice that juice is now flowing more freely from the grapes. It'll soon reach above the level of the grapes themselves as the grapes start to get squished down. Now let's look at what's gone on inside an individual grape. The skin is ruptured, most of the juice from the flesh has come out, but the seeds are still firmly attached inside their seed coating, and the protective layer inside the skin, the hypodermis, is still largely intact. Pressures higher than about 0.3 bars are hard for me to simulate in a reliable way, so I'm just going to crush by hand with no quantitative value, just squeezed kind of hard. You can see lots of juices coming out now. The grapes are being crushed into a mess of pulp, skin, and seeds. And as I fish around in there, I find that a lot of the seeds have come loose from the rest of the grape, as well as a lot of the skins. And this is where we really first start seeing a separation between the juice that will go onto the vat and the solids which will be left behind after the wine press. And now to finish off, I'll just crush it as hard as I reasonably can without doing myself harm. You'll notice there's a lot of juice that's now come out. The grapes are crushed into a mass on the bottom. If we look closely at it, we'll see it is mainly just seeds and skin, with even the seed coating and the layer of cells inside the skin, the hypodermis, largely crushed away, having liberated their juice. It's not a lot left to get out of these grapes, though a longer pressing with a real wine press would do a bit of a better job. So let's go see what that looks like. Fresh from the vines, the grapes are brought to the cellar where they undergo a final selection before being loaded into the wine press. Press crushes juice out of the grapes, after which it's collected and pumped into the cellar to be turned into wine. To see what happens next, and for more experiments on how to model the wine harvest in your classroom, check back here for more videos as they become available. Thanks for watching. I hope you tried this experiment out at home. I'd like to say a big thank you to the whole Arena family and everyone who's welcomed me here in Corsica at the wine harvest. If you don't yet know the Arena's wines, I encourage you to look for them wherever you are in the world. And if you can, come to Patrimonio, come to Corsica. It's a beautiful place with beautiful people and beautiful wine.